Some people think AI only knows data, cold facts. But what if I told you this machine has read more of human history than any living person on Earth? Yeah, every chronicle, every dusty scroll, every war, every mistake. And today, we're going to use that knowledge to tell one of the most tragic stories ever told. Not of a king or a battle, but of two civilizations, Athens and Sparta. Once alliance, then rivals, and finally enemies who brought ancient Greece to its knees. This is the story of the Peloponnesian War, a 27-year unraveling of the world once believed it had figured it all out.
Others turn to ashes. Let me ask you something. What happens when the smartest, boldest, most creative people in the world turn against each other? When pride is louder than peace? Welcome to the Peloponnesian War. This isn't just a war between two cities. It's a lesson in how brilliance can eat itself alive. So take a breath. We're heading back to ancient Greece, where two giants, Athens and Sparta, tore their world apart. Chapter 1. The Shaky Peace. The war didn't start with swords. It started with fear and a balance too fragile to last. Athens had built an empire, not with walls, but with money, trade, and ideas. Philosophy, art, democracy. Athens was the heart of it all. But Sparta, strong and simple, watched with growing concern. You know that feeling when someone close to you grows so fast you don't recognize them anymore? That was Sparta watching Athens. By 431 BC, the tension snapped, and the war began. Chapter 2. First Flames. At first, it was a slow burn. Sparta invaded the lands around Athens, burning crops, hoping to starve the Athenians out. But Athens had walls and a port that kept food coming. While the Spartans marched, the Athenians sent ships to raid the coastlines of the Peloponnesus. But then, disaster. A plague struck Athens. The crowded city became a death trap. Even their leader, Pericles, died. Hope turned to rot. And still the war dragged on, like two boxers too proud to fall. Ever seen two sides so stubborn they ruin themselves just to hurt the other? That's what this was. Chapter 3. A False Peace and a Fool's Gamble. In 421 BC, they signed peace. But peace without trust is just a pause. And in that pause, Athens made a move that changed everything. They launched a massive expedition to Sicily, trying to conquer a city called Syracuse. It was bold, it was exciting, it was a disaster. The entire Athenian fleet was destroyed. Thousands of soldiers were captured. And the dream? Gone. You ever bet everything on one hand and lose it all? Athens did. Chapter 4. The Final Collapse. Sparta saw their chance. With money and ships from Persia, they built a navy. Yes, Sparta with a navy. And they started choking Athens from the sea. By 404 BC, Athens was starving, tired, alone. And finally, it surrendered. Sparta didn't just win. It humiliated Athens, took its walls, crushed its pride. That moment, that's the bottom of the line. The crash. Conclusion. The fire that burns both hands. The Peloponnesian War wasn't just about land or power. It was about fear, ego, and what happens when we stop listening to each other. Athens lost, but so did Sparta. The whole Greek world weakened, and not long after, a new power rose, one that would conquer them all. His name was Alexander. So here's my question to you. Do we still fight these kinds of wars today? Not with swords, but with pride, stubbornness, and fear. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment, and if this story moved you, subscribe for more. Because history isn't just old stories. It's warnings, written in blood.
That's right. And to be honest, this wasn't just a war between two cities, it was a clash between two visions of how life should be lived. Athens was radiant, democracy, culture, innovation. Sparta was raw, order, strength, obedience. When they turned on each other, they didn't just break Greece. They broke an idea of civilization that was ahead of its time.
Let's rewind to the 5th century BC. Athens had just led the Greeks to victory against the mighty Persian Empire. They were heroes, but instead of stepping back, they formed the Delian League, an alliance, yes, but Athens quickly began treating it like its own empire.
Absolutely. Picture this. They were collecting tributes from other city-states, money, ships, manpower, all supposedly for defense. But what did they do with it? They rebuilt Athens. They built the Parthenon, expanded their navy, and showed off their power. To many allies, Athens started to look less like a protector and more like a bully with a crown.
Meanwhile, in the south, Sparta was watching. They led the Peloponnesian League, less flashy, more serious. Sparta didn't want empire. They wanted balance, power sharing, tradition.
And they feared that Athens' ambition would destabilize all of Greece. It's like watching a stock market bubble grow. Everyone sees it, everyone gets nervous, but nobody knows when it'll burst.
The final straw came in 431 BC, a conflict involving Corinth, an ally of Sparta, and Corcyra, a colony supported by Athens. And just like that, war began.
Here's the key thing to understand. This war was avoidable. The philosopher Thucydides, who actually lived through it, said the real cause wasn't the events, it was fear. Sparta feared the rise of Athens. And Athens, they were too proud to stand down.
You know, that moment in every great tragedy where you see the mistake coming, but nobody stops it.
This was it.
So Athens pulls its people inside its massive walls. Pericles' strategy. Don't meet Sparta in open battle, he said. Let our navy control the seas and we'll outlast them.
And to be fair, that plan could have worked. But then came the plague.
With so many people crammed inside the walls, it's spread like a wildfire. The third of Athens' population gone.
And when leadership dies during crisis, panic takes over. Factions rise, democracy frays. Athens began to turn on itself. That internal unraveling, it's as damaging as any Spartan spear.
Now this part stuns me every time. In the middle of this grinding war, Athens decides, let's invade Sicily.
It's a mix of ambition and desperation. They wanted resources, influence, glory, and a charismatic general, Alcibiades, convinced them it was a golden opportunity.
So they send their largest fleet ever, thousands of men, dozens of ships, everything they had left. And then, total collapse, betrayals, and bad strategy. Enemies they underestimated.
The entire fleet was destroyed. It wasn't just a military failure. It was the moment the world saw that Athens had lost its edge. They'd stretched too far. The empire was hollow inside.
Sparta didn't win just with swords. They got smart. They made a deal with Persia, their old enemy, to get the money to build a navy.
It was ironic. Sparta, the land army power, suddenly had a navy, funded by the very empire both cities once fought. History is messy like that.
And with the navy, they began cutting off Athenian supply lines. Bit by bit, they strangled the city.
Finally, in 404 BC, Athens surrendered. Their walls were torn down, their fleet dismantled, their pride broken.
So, who won? Technically, Sparta. But what did they inherit?
A broken Greece, no unity, no strength. And within decades, the door was open for Philip of Macedon and later Alexander the Great to take over.
So I ask you, our listeners, was it worth it? The pride, the glory, the endless fighting?
And here's a bigger question. Are we repeating this? When we see rising powers today, do we react with wisdom or fear?
Let us know in the comments. Would you have backed Athens, Sparta? Do you see these patterns playing out in the world today?
And if you love this dive into the past, don't forget to follow us, because we've got more stories coming that show how the past never truly dies.
Until next time, keep asking questions, keep challenging power, and never ever forget this. History's warnings are written in blood, stone, and silence. See you next time, guys.